Run! We have to keep moving!
The sirens wailed first, long metallic cries that sliced through the morning haze like knives through canvas. And we all knew they were too late, because the sea had already abandoned its ancient boundaries and was sprinting toward the city on glass legs. I grabbed Lucky, my mud-colored mutt with twilight eyes, and sprinted down Sisawath Quay as the asphalt trembled underfoot. Vendors left their carts. Monks in saffron robes clutched prayer beads that clicked like frantic Morse code. And somewhere a wedding band played one last cymbal crash before the water silenced it. The horizon, normally a soft blue lullaby, had turned into a vertical wall of jade that devoured clouds as it lunged forward. Buildings quivered like old men in a winter draft, and a smell, brackish, electric, almost metallic, filled every lungful of air. In the chaos, I locked eyes with Dara, the painter from the upstairs studio. She clutched a canvas that dripped indigo, as if the sky itself were bleeding through her fingers. We exchanged no words. There was only the understanding that art, dogs, and heartbeat were suddenly equal cargo on this sinking ark of a city. We joined forces with two strangers. Vyasna, a retired school teacher whose clipboard somehow survived the first surge, and Nai, a motorcycle mechanic carrying a plastic toolbox stuffed with water bottles instead of wrenches. Together we pushed north, ankle-deep in the first messy lick of the wave, while the royal palace's gold roof shattered like brittle sugar behind us. I kept whispering into Lucky's fur, promising rice and long walks on the other side of calamity, though I had no idea where that other side might be. Above, birds circled in panicked fractals, their wing beats sounding like pages of history books being torn out. Below, the streetlights hissed as salt water crawled up their iron necks. We turned onto an alley, lungs burning, only to find the ground already liquefied, potholes blooming into vortexes that swallowed tuk-tuks whole. Nai shouted that the central police station sat on higher ground. Dara said its roof could hold all of us and maybe a god or two. And Vyasna scribbled names of missing students on the back of old lesson plans, refusing to lose their stories to the flood. The roar behind us swelled into something mythic, like 1,000 trains colliding under a cathedral organ. So we ran harder, not with hope, but with the raw animal refusal to end within a statistics. I felt Lucky's heartbeat echo against my chest, an insistent drum saying, "Move, move, move," and the city's familiar grid dissolved into a labyrinth of floating signs, drifting memory, and the unstoppable green fist of the sea. We reached the police station just as the first major crest smashed the boulevard below, sending cars tumbling like bright dice. The building squatted on a concrete rise, but even that looked fragile beneath the furious choreography of water. Inside, officers had already abandoned protocol in favor of humanity. Weapons racks were emptied to craft makeshift ladders, evidence lockers pried open to yield tarps, canned food, and a single working transistor radio that crackled with frantic broadcasts. Indochina coastline, seek elevation above 20 meters, aftershocks likely, before dissolving into static that resembled distant applause. Vyasna organized survivors with the calm of decades spent herding teenagers. Nai improvised knots, lashing desks into a floating platform in case the building surrendered. Dara painted arrows on the walls with spray cans looted from the impound, turning drab corridors into neon veins that guided trembling families upward. I secured Lucky to a rope belt so my hands stayed free. Every so often his paws slid, and I'd yank him close, hearing the wet slap of his tail against my hip. Pure trust in motion. Outside the windows, the city performed a grotesque ballet. Pagodas shedding tiles like petals, power lines fizzing, a drifting supermarket sign offering half-price hope in flickering red as it sailed by. Each sight etched itself onto a mental fresco I never asked to paint. On the roof we took inventory. 43 humans, 6 dogs, 1 traumatized parakeet still singing the first 4 bars of a love song about Phnom Penh night markets. The youngest survivor, a girl named Marley, hugged a stuffed dolphin that had already absorbed half the Mekong. She asked if dolphins could swim this far inland to carry us away, and Dara, voice shaking but steady, said yes. Sometimes miracles borrow unlikely shapes. Evening bled into an orange bruise while the water kept climbing, now licking the stairwell like a curious beast. We rigged ropes to the radio antenna, ready to ascend higher if the roof went under, and stared north where the horizon should have been. Instead, we saw only a restless plain of moon-lit water dotted with rooftops like broken teeth. Yet in that impossible silence between gusts, I felt a pulse of collective defiance. Nobody here intended to be a memory without a fight. So we traded stories. Vyasna's first chalkboard, Nai's favorite engine rebuild, Dara's confession that her tsunami painting had been finished the night before, and each tale became a sandbag holding back despair. Lucky curled beside Marley, offering dog warmth the way priests offer absolution. I closed my eyes, pretending the roof was a riverside terrace, and for one fragile heartbeat, the ocean's growl sounded almost like applause for our stubbornness. Night fell hard and starless, clouds strangling the moon, but danger glows in the dark. Whirls of bioluminescent plankton rode the flood, turning every wavelet into a ghostly lantern. We watched in eerie awe as koi from a hotel pond glided past like living embers, scales catching plankton light so they resembled drifting constellations exiled from the sky. Then the aftershock hit. The roof lurched, masonry groaned, and a hairline crack shot beneath our feet like lightning frozen into concrete. Screams, scrambling, Lucky barking thunder back into the sky. A radio burst to life. Second wave forming, upstream dam compromised, then fizzed out, as if the message had died of fright mid-sentence. Vyasna ordered a roll call. 2 were missing. Nai swung a floodlight across the adjacent building and found them clinging to a billboard that once advertised mobile data plans. Ironic, because in this drowned age, megabytes meant nothing and heartbeat meant everything. We threw a rope. Dara painted the billboard edge with glow spray so they had a target, and together we heaved them across the black flood, muscles tearing, spirits refusing. When they landed, wet and shaking, Marley offered the dolphin plush as a medal of valor. Meanwhile, the crack widened, spitting shards. We reinforced with filing cabinets wedged like splints, but the building's spine was clearly breaking. Options narrowed to 1. Build a raft before sunrise. Paperwork, doors, riot shields. Anything buoyant became holy. I dismantled the flagpole for mast, while Nai rigged engine oil drums into pontoons. Dara painted a white dog silhouette on the deck, so Lucky would know his territory. That touch of tenderness felt like a declaration that culture survives even when civilization drowns. As we worked, thunderheads massed inland, hurling violet flashes that silhouetted the city's skeletons. Rain followed, warm, relentless, turning the roof into a slippery riddle. Yet every droplet felt like the planet whispering, "Keep moving." By dawn, the raft floated in the stairwell pool, lashed to the antenna like a restless horse. 43 humans and 6 dogs on a craft built for half. That was the math. But hope hates arithmetic. We loaded essentials: water, canned lychee, spare batteries, a laminated map smeared with paint. Lucky boarded first, tail high. The sight flipped a switch in every heart, and fear bled into resolve. We pushed off, the roof shrinking behind us like yesterday's belief system, and entered a city now rewritten as archipelago. Somewhere in the distance a temple bell rang beneath the waves, a muffled bronze heartbeat counting down to whatever came next. The raft drifted through silent avenues transformed into canals, where lotus blossoms mingled with staplers and children's shoes in surreal communion. We used shovels as paddles, steering between overturned buses that groaned like beached whales. At Street 11, we found a cluster of survivors atop a cinema marquee spelling out, "Now showing nothing." We hauled them aboard, space be damned, and the raft sank an inch lower, yet our spirits rose, because every rescued soul was one less ghost haunting tomorrow. Noon sun pierced the cloud lid, turning the water into molten mirrors that threatened to blind us with reflections of the life we'd lost. Heat pressed down. Dehydration whispered ugly bargains. Vyazna rationed drinks. Dara painted a blue teardrop on each bottle, reminding us to value every swallow. Mid-afternoon, we encountered the dam break, a furious brown torrent merging with the oceanic surge, choked with splintered timber and memories. Navigating felt like playing chess against chaos, each move a guess. Nye's toolbox turned rudder snapped. Lucky leapt, fetched the floating hammer, and we used it to nail a street sign into place. Impossible engineering born of desperation. Evening approached, painting the sky in bruised magenta when we glimpsed salvation. The ancient hill at Wat Phnom rising above the flood like the city's final exhalation. Its stupa gleamed, a lone candle in the drowning room. But a maelstrom guarded the base, swirling debris and razor currents. We formed a human-dog chain. First Lucky, then me, then Dara gripping my belt, each person clasping the next. We stepped into the whirl. Water clawed, rooftops rammed, yet the chain held, inch by inch, until stone steps met our frozen toes. One last push, and we erupted onto dry marble, collapsing in a pile of heartbeat and disbelief. Behind us, the raft spun away, its painted dog still shining, a goodbye wave from the version of us that refused to quit. On the terrace we counted 49 humans now, 6 dogs, 1 heroic parakeet still singing. Marley placed her dolphin plush atop the stupa like an offering to every unseen force that had spared us. In the hush that followed, the city groaned, waters receding ever so slightly as if bowing to our audacity. We were soaked, bruised, half-starved, but undeniably alive. And in that realization bloomed a quiet vow. We would rebuild stories, temples, motorbikes, classrooms, and canvases. We would paint arrows toward higher ground for generations unborn. We would remember the night koi became constellations, and dogs steered destiny. Because the last day of us hadn't arrived after all, only the last day of who we used to be, washed clean so something fiercer, kinder, and impossibly stubborn could take its first breath beneath the resurrected sun,